Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Hello, Winnipeg Jets fans, and welcome back to Game Over Winnipeg. My name is Lyss, as always, and I am joined by my friend Michael Bartner of MB on Hockey today. Very excited to have him on the show to talk about whatever that was. So, Mike, how are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic, especially doing fantastic after a normal New York Islanders 2-1 physical style of play win. Grinded out hockey, excited to get into it.
Excellent, excellent. Before we get started, I'm going to share a quick message from our friends over at Sports Interaction. But before I do that, I realized I forgot to pull up the ad read, so I shouldn't count my chickens before they hatch. But like Mike said, the physical 2-1 low-scoring matchup of the New York Islanders is kind of what we've grown to expect from those guys. But did you find that there was anything particularly notable about the Islanders on this side?
Yeah, I mean the lineup, especially coming into this game, they were playing with like 4 AHLers basically, and they really held their own. I think the Winnipeg Jets definitely outplayed them, but you got guys like Durandrew, Holmstrom really stepping up. So I'm really impressed on how, although they aren't that high level players, they've really been rising to the occasion in back-to-back games, even without their full roster.
Yeah, I mean, great for you guys, embarrassing for us, I guess. So that's that's definitely the way. It's good for a team, when you're like looking internally, right, that they're able to kind of manage those situations and have those guys come in and play those roles. So that's fantastic. Congrats to you. But again, embarrassing on the side of the Winnipeg Jets that they couldn't find a way to score more than one goal in that situation. Obviously, Ilya Sorokin is Ilya Sorokin, and that was the kind of thing. I'm sure it was the kind of thing that you have a similar conversation with people. You'll have an out-of-division game and someone will be like, oh, man, Sorokin was so unreal. And you're like, that was just a regular game for him. But like, okay, that's kind of how we feel every time someone's like, oh, Connor Hellebuck was so amazing. That's why your team won tonight. I'm like, oh, yeah, that was a pretty regular performance from him, but it was nice to see kind of both of those goalies play pretty well, in my opinion, this evening.
Yeah, no, I mean it was another Sorokin masterpiece. There's a reason why he's like, in terms of like per start, or like his percentage of starts that are like the most shutouts ever in NHL history on average. So yeah, just two great goaltending games. I feel like the Islanders honestly just got lucky twice on Connor Hellebuck. I don't think they were like that great of chance, or they were pretty good great of chances. It was more so just the Jets making mistakes. I don't think they pelted Connor Hellebuck that much, but they definitely took advantage of the few opportunities that they did have.
Yeah, it's definitely a low shooting game, in my opinion, with looking at,
Yeah.
If you're looking at ways to strategize against certain goaltenders, like you at least want more shots. Obviously, you want better quality shots against better quality goalies because the likelihood of those peppered perimeter shots going in is pretty low. But, like, you need at least a chance to get past them. So you'd think it'd be a little bit more of a higher shooting game. But before we get into that, I am going to do my quick little ad read here. So want to bet, then get in on the the action at Sports Interaction. The boys of summer are back on the diamond, and March Madness is on deck. Bet pregame, live and play are on one of our many prop bets. Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. Or in Ontario, download the app now using the QR code at the bottom of my screen here. It's 19 plus, so please play responsibly. And if you believe that you may have any issues with gambling, please go out to the resources that are available at Sports Interaction. So to get back into this a little bit, we talked about the goaltending in those situations and looking at needing more. That being said, I didn't think that this was the most defensively sound game from either the Winnipeg Jets or the New York Islanders tonight. Would you agree with that?
No, yeah, 100%. I feel like the Islanders allowed a lot of 3-on-2 rushes and kind of just got lucky by Ilya Sorokin bailing them out a ton there. They allowed a lot off the rush. Their blue line defense was not good by any means, and usually it actually is pretty decent. So I was pretty surprised by that from them.
Yeah, it was really interesting because it's the kind of thing where obviously a lot of Winnipeg Jets fans are familiar with Barry Trotz, especially when I accidentally started the rumor that he was getting hired, 6 months ago. Good
Insider
times.
list, yep.
But we know that when Barry Trotz is a coach of the New York Islanders, it was very much like when you play against the Islanders, it's going to be a 2-1 game, and Matt Barzal is going to finish the season with 60 points and be the highest scorer on the Islanders, yet they're going to be in the playoff race and make it to the conference finals or whatever, right? So it's interesting to see that sort of continue under a different coach, but also in certain situations, like maybe it's personnel, maybe it's coaching, but they just don't look as tight-knit in their own zone, in my opinion, as they used to.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm not the biggest Lane Lambert guy. He comes from the Barry Trotz tree, but there's kind of a reason why he was the assistant coach for so long. Didn't get a ton of other looks in terms of being a head coach until the Islanders did bring him up. Still decent overall, but yeah, the system has definitely changed. They're allowing a lot more transition play than under a Barry Trotz.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I noticed in particular today was that the Winnipeg Jets were weird with the way that they were controlling possession in certain ways and whatnot. But I found that one thing that they were actually pretty good at was stripping some pucks from when the Islanders were actually kind of trying to break out of their zone a little bit. Usually that's something that the Jets struggle with a little bit. But honestly, it wasn't even that own, like, you know, you look to be a little tighter on your own blue line and all those kinds of things. But honestly, sometimes the Jets didn't even give them the chance to get there. There was some better moves on that forecheck. That's, a particular area of weakness, in my opinion, for the Winnipeg Jets. They're not heavy enough on their forecheck. And tonight, they didn't look overly heavier. It was just kind of the way that the Islanders were transitioning out of their zone that seemed a little bit more easy to capitalize on. But obviously, when you're missing your best puck carrier, that will tend to happen to a team.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Matt Barzal basically carried the puck into the zone like every damn time when he was on a line with like Anders Lee and Josh Bailey and stuff like that. And also even a guy like JG Pageau, not the best puck handler, puck carrier by any stretch of the imagination, but when you're bringing in those AHL guys instead of him, you do see a massive drop off in terms of the effectiveness of getting out of the zone, getting into the opposing team zone. So yeah, like you definitely miss a JG Pageau, but especially when you look at the talent offensively that is coming up, it's a big drop off, especially when you got Ross Johnson playing. Yeah,
and Ross Johnson tried to fight Sacramento line tonight.
Yeah, actually, what did you think of Ross Johnson? What did he take? Like 1 or 2 penalties tonight?
When I was looking at their lineup a little bit going into it, and I was, there are a couple guys. I'll be honest with you, I was like, I don't know who Ross Johnson is. I was looking at him, and it seemed like a little bit of a, this is the guy that probably wasn't on anyone's opening drawn out roster, but then injuries, trades, whatever permits, and there he is. And yeah, he seemed like, was he on the ice for that second goal? Because he seems like he could have been. That seems like the kind of goal that he would have been part of.
No, that was the Holmstrom Horvat in like Matt Martin line. Like that's how you know, like the starting line was Anders Lee, Nelson or Horvat in Matt Martin. Matt Martin was our first line right wing today. He's not even a right wing. Like he's a left wing. That's how hurt we are right now. But yeah, Ross Johnson, his one notable play was getting into a scrum with PLD and just taking them out for 2 minutes. That was his one good thing of the night. So that's Ross Johnson for
it was so funny. There are a bunch of people that every Jets game, it's a similar people that we all interact with each other on Twitter and, kind of shoot the shit a little bit. It's a ton of fun. But there was one guy who's like, people talking about the goaltending battle, Connor Hellebuyck versus Sorokin, blah, blah, blah. Like, can I remind you, though, that one of these guys has Mason Appleton playing on his first line? And I was like, can I remind you that the other one has Matt Martin playing on his first line? We're all in bad shape out here. It's
not much better. Yeah. Cole Perfetti's missed, and then like 4 guys on the Islanders are sorely missed right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about something that I kind of noticed that was an area of weakness for the Jets tonight, their lack of shots. Part of it to me came from when they were in transition, breaking up the ice a little bit, and maybe you can comment this on from the defensive perspective, but I found that puck carrying tonight had to be done up the middle of the ice. I found that the walls are pretty jammed up by the Isles defenders. I thought that, if a guy was breaking up the ice on the wing for the Jets, he really, really struggled to get in unless he was doing that shitty pass that I hate to the guy who's completely stationary on the blue line and then everyone has to stop and they have to dump the puck in and all that garbage. But no one was actually breaking up properly down the wing. They really had to break through the middle or try and pass up a little bit, doing a little bit more puck movement as opposed to just the carrier, because I thought that the Isles did a good job of clogging up those walls today. I don't know if it was their wingers or their defenders, but is this something that tends to be kind of common in Islanders play?
No, yeah, they definitely do tend to play a decent amount wide when the team's coming on the rush, because they are a very physical bunch. You got Pollock, Pellick, Romanov, Mayfield. They're not afraid to literally just crunch you against the board, so they tend to play a lot more wider and kind of force you down the middle. So no, that's kind of typical for Islander hockey.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's an area that you have to adjust to a little bit better. And that's one thing, especially as we get to the end of the season, that teams need to do a better job of. Obviously, if the Winnipeg Jets are to ever play the New York Islanders again after, next week, I think they play each other again. That's besides the point. It would be in the Stanley Cup final. Like, you don't really need to get particularly adjusted to the New York Islanders style of play, but you need to learn to do a better job of getting adjusted to your opponent's style of play, and that was something that I didn't think they did a super good job of tonight. But I want to talk a little bit about special teams too. So a couple calls, both sides, this, that, whatever. Before we get into the actual play of the special teams, any calls tonight that you were like, that was a bad call, that was a good call, or anything that was missed in your opinion?
Definitely, definitely that first call on Durandu. I was like, oh, at first I was like, what the fuck was that? Oh, sorry, but I was like, what the hell was that? Then it definitely on
You
the
can swear
replay.
on
That
my
was
show, I
probably
don't
the
care.
that was probably the one. I didn't know if the higher ups were listening in and to get you in trouble, but that was the one thing at first I was like, ooh, a little bit sus. It definitely was like a tic tac call, but I definitely see where they were coming from on that. Besides that, I mean. Nothing really stood up. There was the one on Koivalu that was like pretty obvious. The guy literally just slashed him across. I'm trying to think of anything else. Was there anything that you thought was like egregious?
No, not for me. I just know that the Islanders fans in the arena really didn't like that call that Sandberg drew, that tripping call. Skate on skate,
Yeah,
but
yeah, it's something in the building when you see that. You don't see like the skate on skate, so you're probably like, what the hell? There was barely any contact there. But yeah, I can definitely see that where it was called, but I wouldn't have called it,
I'm just looking at the penalties here and looking at the gotta shout out, the Ross Johnson 2 penalties tonight, attaboy. And one of them was a roughing penalty in unison with Pierre-Luc Dubois' roughing penalty. I'm so glad. Pierre-Luc Dubois has one of the best penalty differentials in the entire NHL, and yet I'm pretty sure he gets like 1 to 2 penalties on average every single game. I'm so sick of this man. Like, I don't even know. But before we start talking about special teams, for those of you who are in the chat, I see we got a good amount of listeners here. Thank you so much for joining. Make sure you're subscribing to SDPN and you're liking the stream and commenting below. Let me know what you thought of the special teams tonight, because obviously for my Jets fans listening, we got a talking point to talk about there. The Winnipeg Jets, it took them how many freaking games to put back together the unit that they needed to put together. I was literally tweeting about it before they even scored, because actually scoring on a penalty or a power play unit is obviously the most important thing about it. But this is the first game, or I didn't watch the last couple games. I was busy this weekend. But Cole Perfetti's injury has changed a couple of things, and they've shuffled some guys around. But they're finally putting Scheifele and Ehlers in the same unit, which is extremely important. So tonight, the unit... the first power play unit that the Winnipeg Jets were running was Josh Morrissey up top, Pierre-Luc Dubois down low, Kyle Connor in his office, and then they had both Ehlers and Scheifele. So that is the unit if you're the Winnipeg Jets. Putting Nikolai Ehlers, who is your best puck carrier and the only guy who can actually make his own entry on the power play, is extremely important. Also, Pierre-Luc Dubois. I'm not a huge face-offs girly. I don't care a whole ton about face-offs personally, like more as an isolated play. I think they're really important as an isolated play, but if you look at percentages, that kind of doesn't mean a ton to me, because it's really more in the moment that it matters. As like, if you look at a guy who's a 60% face-offs, and it's like, okay, congrats to him, like, what else is he doing for me lately, kind of thing. I'm a little bit less of a face-offs girly, but tonight Pierre-Luc Dubois was actually winning face-offs, and it changed a lot of things for the Winnipeg Jets on their power play, which was great. But my big thing with this whole Jets power play whatever is that Rick Bowness has outright said that he won't put Scheifele and Ehlers in the same power play unit because they like to play in the same spot. If you're picking between the two of those guys, you need to put Ehlers first because he's your best power play guy, so that's dumb. And Mark Scheifele hasn't had as much power play success as he has seen when he was in his middle slot there, getting those one-timers and those deflections right in front of the goaltender, which they seem to move him back towards today, and I thought it looked a lot better. Do you have any thoughts on the Winnipeg Jets power play that you happen to notice today, or anything about how you noticed the Islanders penalty kill adjusting or anything like that?
I thought the penalty kill was pretty bad, not gonna lie, for the Islanders, but yeah, I mean they entered the zone pretty easily. It was pretty meh. Obviously they let up the one Ehlers goal that was just, he was like, I think Polak was screening his own goalie. That was unfortunate, but overall the PK was okay, pretty bad, I'd say. Power play unit, I mean, beggars really can't be choosers. They didn't score on I think there are 2 or 3 power plays, but for us, especially without Barzal, it's usually a struggle even to get into the zone on the power play, especially without Barzal. So I think they actually had some decent chances. I think Brock Nelson whiffed on a one-timer, like cross crease. That was a great chance. They got a couple shots on net. So overall, special teams for the Islanders, it definitely wasn't anything to like hang your hat on. But it's definitely been worse. We've definitely had far worse nights because we are at least power play wise. PK is usually pretty solid, but power play, one of the worst power plays.
Yeah, for sure, and that's something that definitely, as I've noticed kind of throughout the course of Jets games over the last little bit, like, God, you need to have a good power play if you want to succeed as you move forward. Like, it's so important to be able to capitalize on those chances, and it's the kind of thing where it's like, it doesn't matter if your power play is good if you suck at 5-on-5 and are unable to draw penalties. So I get that. Like, so 5-on-5 play is always the most important thing for any team ever. But once you've kind of mastered that, or you've developed a solid footing in your 5-on-5, like, you got to have a good power play. And for someone like the Islanders, in my opinion, again, I don't watch a ton of Eastern Conference hockey, but you make a trade for the biggest UFA on the market, you'd think they're going for some form of playoff push. Maybe not now that he's actually signed long term and isn't just a rental, but besides the point, it's important to get that power play up and running in order to, not score at will, but be closer to scoring at will, because that's the best chance you're going to get to pot those goals when you're at 5-on-4.
Yeah, no, the power play was actually looking pretty decent when it was Barzal and Bo up there, but now that Barzal, who again handles the puck for like so much, whether it's 5-on-5 or power play, kind of filling his void has kind of been tough. But I definitely feel better about the power play now than like 2 weeks ago, because we went on like a 3-for-48 run. Like, it was historically bad. So like, now that we're only scoring probably at like a 15-20% clip, like, I'll take that. Beggars literally can't be choosers.
No, that's fair. And I think also just with the nature of the makeup, this is actually maybe going to be an interesting conversation that we can have. So I see some people in the chat, particularly David, talking about just kind of the worry that's developing among Jets fans just with the depth scoring piece that's really missing. And I'm a big believer that your scorers need to score, and everyone else, like, you shouldn't be relying on, if you're relying on your third line center to score 20 goals in a season, like, that means that there's something wrong with your top six. You shouldn't be relying on them for that heavy of point contribution. They're more meant for energy lines and for matchup lines. But that being said, there's a huge void there right now, and you need to have those lines that have the ability to score, and the off chance that your top six are having some rough nights. And it seems to be that that's the case more and more lately with the Winnipeg Jets. And depth scoring is a huge issue for the Winnipeg Jets. They have the top end talent. Does the top end talent always capitalize? That's a different story. But they have that top end ability. Their top six has some of the better players in the NHL, night in, night out, and their depth is just not producing as much as they would need if they want to be, quote unquote, that guy in the playoffs that they think they're going to be. So coming from the Islanders are a team that's notably deep, correct? Like, they have that, I guess not right now so much with some of the AHL players that got going on. But talk a little bit about depth from your perspective and kind of how it's seen, success with the Islanders in the last little bit.
Well, I'll give my take on the Winnipeg bottom six based on what I saw, and it's not good. Basically, whenever whenever I heard from one of their players, they weren't doing something good. What's the one guy's name? The Finnish guy?
Sakamainen.
He was, at least in my mind, like, he was messing up throughout the game. I was not that impressed. Adam Lowry's just like a big body. Doesn't really impress me. And I literally forgot Sam Gagner was even on the team till literally like end of the third period. They said his name like once the broadcast, and I was like I had to do like a double take. But the Winnipeg Jets. Yeah, because I whenever Kyle Connor, Scheifele, Wheeler were on the ice, something was happening and I felt scared. But once I saw big bad Adam Lowry, or I already forgot like the Finnish guy's name, I was like, we're good. Like, there's going to be some turnover. We're going to be perfectly fine. And yeah, from an Islanders perspective, what we've kind of done, like when we went on those runs, we didn't have like a good first line. We basically just had three good second lines and like the identity line, that fourth line that'll beat the shit out of you. So it's like,
so true.
It's like, yeah, it's like we weren't the most skilled team, but we probably lose the battle when it's your first line versus our first line. Second line, we're probably better than your second line. And our third line was definitely better than your third line. So, like, yeah, depth as an Islanders fan, I have found out is literally essential to any deep playoff run, and is why the Jets should probably go out and get a center or winger for that third line. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think the thing that's rough about the Jets is that, yeah, they have, like, Blake Wheeler's a good player. Like, he's having a decent season. He's been a notably strong winger in the NHL for quite a few years. But it's the kind of thing where it's like, my take on what the Winnipeg Jets need to do for their ads is not go get more third liners and put them on the third line. It's to get more top 6 players and move guys out of your top 6 who should be third liners. And I think that that's something that's really important for a team to kind of identify and look and see, this player who's 34 years old is probably not going to be on your top line in a cup run. There's just a very unlikely chance. And so I don't know. It's hard because I don't really care about Adam Lowry scoring all that much, because ideally, if he's going out against a top line, he's just doing enough to get them from stopping scoring and stopping creating chances. And if he's not creating a ton on his own, I'm okay with that. But like you said, the big bad Lowry, you go out there and you're not scared. That's not good. You're supposed to be scared of a team's third line. You're supposed to be worried that you're not going to be able to create enough when that player's on the ice or when that line's on the ice. And if that's not the case, then what are they there for? Especially, and again, if they weren't doing that, but they were scoring on the regular, it's like, okay, I guess I can sort of forgive them for that. But if they're doing neither of those things, that's not enough for a third line. Your third line is arguably one of the more important components of your team if you're looking to isolate other teams from scoring, right? So it's very difficult.
Yeah, no, literally, I was just an example, but like, in Tampa Bay, their third line, the acquisitions of Barclay Goodrow and Blake Coleman, not the most sexy additions of all time, but just fantastic two-way wingers that can give you 35 to 40 points. They're not gonna be the most flashy players, but they get the job done. So yeah, I think Winnipeg at the deadline definitely needs to do something like that. Probably get a higher end player in today's NHL. It's a lot more offensive, but yeah, they need to do something. And my Islanders already got Bo Horvat, so I don't love the idea of us going on top of that and adding even more. Hopefully, our additions will basically just be Pajot and Barzal finally getting healthy. But from a Winnipeg standpoint, if you couldn't beat this Islanders team tonight, and I love my Islanders, there's something needs to be coming at the deadline.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that it's the kind of thing where you can't keep losing hockey games. Like, it is the kind of thing, I know any night you can go out there, they're all professionals, anyone can beat anyone, Buffalo always beats Toronto and all these freaking things, but it's like, no, like you need to start looking at this, and it's not bringing in Ivan Barbashev, it's not bringing in, Nick Bukestad as your sole trade piece. Like, they got to do a little bit more than that. And so
it's Timo Meier or bust.
So true.
Brad Lambert gone. Ricker McGrody gone. See ya.
I don't care. Get rid of them if it means I get Timo Meier. Trade them all. Trade Cole Perfetti for all I care. Okay, no, that's a little bit more of a complex one than that, but it's true. Timo Meier is a freaking good player, and if they can't get him, I'm still looking at that Jacob Chychrun, Nick Schmaltz package that we could cook up a little bit. I don't know. I could see it being a fit. Lots of news going around in those particular areas. Hate to break it to you, but Nikita Zaitsev is now off the table. Unfortunately, we can't bring that guy in to help our team. God, can you imagine if I got traded with 2 actual picks for future considerations? If I was that, I would drop and retire on the spot.
I mean, no offense to Ottawa, but like, you get to go to Chicago, which is much better. You're still getting paid. I wouldn't be too mad if it was like a legit contender and like they were literally like, no, you're literally just not coming on this cup run with us. That would suck. But like, you get out of Ottawa, you're in a better city, all that stuff. Next year, you just sign with some cup running team. I don't hate it that much. But I'm an Ottawa hater.
Yeah, you are, but it's okay. It's the kind of thing for those of you who are regulars, you know how much of a Winnipeg Jets hater I am. Mike's also an Islanders hater. We're kind of just those self-depreciating, like, I don't like my hockey team sometimes, but Baby Yoda in the chat says that Chevy sucks as a GM, and I have many, many mixed feelings about that. I do think that he's a little bit more of a reserved GM, and he's not going to he'll be kicking the tires on players, but he'll back out if he thinks the price gets too high because he doesn't want to exploit his pieces too much and stuff like that, which I think is fair. But there are times when you just have to do that because either it doesn't matter if you don't walk away with the player, it's as if you were never fighting for them at all, right? Because you're walking away without the ad on your team. So I wouldn't go as far as to say that he sucks, but if you've been a GM of a hockey team for 11 or 12 years or whatever it's been, and your team's made one playoff run, I'm not feeling great about it. So it'll be interesting to see. Once again, I'm seeing here that Baby Yoda says we're struggling because we don't have a bottom 6 that can score. I have more worries about the top six than I do about the bottom six, if I'm being completely honest. I think that we wouldn't be noticing the impacts of the bottom six as much if Kyle Connor was able to score at the rate that Kyle Connor can score at, if Pierre-Luc Dubois could actually do something for once in his life, if Mark Scheifele wasn't just like completely giving things up every single time he didn't have the puck when he was on the ice. You know, all those things are bigger areas of concern for me than a guy who's playing 9 minutes a night on the fourth line. I think you need to, you know, touch those pain points that have the biggest impact on the game. If it was something like goaltending, I'd want to take a better look there because that has a really huge impact on things. But, you know, for both Mike and I, we're not too worried in that category. So
I think in tonight's game you can't be screaming at the bottom six when your top dogs only gave you one power play goal. That's a little ridiculous. Like, it is Ilya Sorokin, but like, you got to get at least two in a game like that. That's not on the bottom six.
Oh, man. Early in that first, there were a couple of chances, though. Like, okay, that's actually one thing that I want to... So, Sorokin obviously slayed tonight. Like, he was very, very, very good. Lots of great moments. But...
There was the one crazy play when Scott Mayfield... Did you see that when Scott Mayfield tripped and fell and almost got his neck slit open? And then Kyle Connor had the off-the-post shot.
That was so early. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then the Ehlers miss, which Sorokin got a piece of. That was also a very good chance.
It was a nice save too. It was just like, holy smokes. And there was another one that there was a shot or whatever, and then the rebound was weird, and Mason Appleton slides through the middle or something like that, and he takes this gorgeous shot. There was like 6 guys in front. I was like, how did this man save that puck? But that one play that you're talking about, that particular save where it was like it slid along the goal line there and it came out, and it was like, oh my god, how did that not go in? Yeah. What was up with the Winnipeg Jets tonight and their no-look passes? It was freaking ridiculous. The giveaways that they were creating from these cheeky, behind-the-back, awful passes that you could read like a book was so insane. Did you notice that, or was that just me getting frustrated?
No, I literally, I think I wrote it down somewhere. It was the no-look, a couple 360 insane passes that they tried to pull off, and just like always trying to make like the ticky-tack extra pass when they had a wide-open shot. Like I'm all for occasionally trying to pull that, but like just put the puck on the net, especially when you only finished with what'd they finish with, like 26, 27 shots. Like they just kept on making the extra pass when just put it on net. It's not that hard.
Yeah, the Winnipeg Jets are very much like a cute look for the extra pass team, and it's very, very frustrating because like sometimes you just need to take the shot if it's there. Like, you don't need to galaxy brain it. Like, if you have good possession of the puck and there's a lane there, like, do it. And that was also my frustration with the end of the game in particular. I'll talk about that second Islanders goal just a little bit, where again it was the same thing where they go into the boards. Dylan DeMello almost makes an awful hit, and I was a little bit terrified there for a second, but we seemed to get out of there unscathed. So
Holmstrom isn't the biggest guy. That could have gotten ugly quick. Yeah,
exactly. I was so worried because they took that camera angle going in too. It was like the first one. I was like, oh no, don't show me this. I don't want to see this. But he retrieves the puck, wins that battle, gives it to Kyle Connor, who tosses the puck behind his back, and Kevin Stenlund's like, hold on, what? And then he fumbles the puck, and then the turnover is there, and then Holmstrom makes that really nice shot. Good for him. Great shot. Not going to take away from that, but that shot should have never happened because Kyle Connor shouldn't have tossed the puck from his own goal line. You don't do that.
Yeah, it was just really irresponsible. I was like, oh, they're about to get it out of the zone, and then it just ends up on Simon Holmstrom's stick, and he just rockets it home. Exactly. I was like, that was such a bang play. The Islanders did not establish the zone at all, and they just easily got a goal. It was awesome as a fan. But yeah, I was like, that should not be happening.
No, exactly, for sure. And it's the kind of thing where it's like, yeah, like Kyle Connor kind of makes that fumble, and so he throws it to Stenlund, who's a little bit out of sorts because the puck wasn't supposed to come there, and so then he slides across because he's like, oh shit, now I don't have the puck. And what does he do? He creates a perfect screen right in front of Connor Hellebuck. It's like, can't be doing that. So why did I want to talk about that? There was something, where was I going? Oh, the end of the game. That's where I was going with this. I am an anti-point shots girly. I hate point shots because for the most part, players are too big and too fast these days that if you're doing a point shot, it should be for a deflection or for a rebound. You shouldn't be looking to score when there are 7 guys in the lane in front of you. The puck's not going to go through. I'm a little bit of an anti in that situation, but like at the end of the game there, Dylan DeMello, bless his heart, but takes an awful penalty when it matters most to not take that.
That was brutal. Nuts. Like. First off, it's Kyle Palmieri. It's not Matt Barzal shrieking down there. There's not even, I'd say, over 50% chance that he finishes that. And second off, with a 2 minutes, 18 seconds left. It's like almost worse to like let him score and then you just have 2 minutes of 5-on-5 instead of having the power play and then you got to pull the goalie. Like it was disastrous by
No,
Dylan DeMayo. And you saw immediately he like does like the most raged like jump because he knew he knew he did it. He was like, damn it. And he was so
pissed.
passionate about it. Yeah, he was so mad. Like he couldn't even fight the ref on that.
No.
It was gold. It was
And
gold.
he knows, yeah. But all that's to say, then you have to kill off a penalty at the worst possible time in a game to kill off a penalty. And then they go and they finally have their 6-on-5, and they win a face-off. And what does Neil Pionk do from the right blue line is he just absolutely cranks a shot 6 feet wide. And I don't hate cranking a shot. Well, not that hard of a shot, but a shot that's wide if you're looking for a one-touch pass or whatever. But it was just a shot for the sake of getting a puck towards the net when there was no traffic in that area. There was no one there to do something with it. And that's just been a continued frustration of mine with some of the Winnipeg Jets defenders who are shot heavy like him. And I find that Dylan Sandberg, he's gotten better, was a little bit shot heavy at first. Logan Stanley is infamous for this. It's just like throwing pucks on net, but it's like that wasn't the shot to throw. That wasn't the type of thing to be doing. And it was just very frustrating in a game like this.
Yeah, believe me, I know shot heavy defenseman Noah Dobson. And I looked it up because he was just ripping shots earlier today. He's fifth in the entire NHL in shots by a defenseman. And yeah, that from Pionk, like I was like, I think I saw it happen. I was like, oh, it's not going anywhere. Like it's such a hero shot. I wasn't worried at all. He wanted to be the hero.
Yeah, no, and that's frustrating. So yeah, things like making those poor isolated plays. I was talking to Mike before this, and I was like, it's so frustrating when your job is to jump on YouTube after a game and talk about what happened. But it's like you want to talk about, it's like, oh, for example, this team is playing a really strong 1-3-1 trap defense and the players are struggling to get through it. That wasn't the case in this game. It was just, why are you making these stupid plays at these stupid times?
Yeah, for me, I told you, I was like, the Jets definitely outplayed the Islanders. The Islanders just took advantage of their chances. That's literally how it went. Obviously, Sorokin played great, and that really helped us, but I really don't think we deserve to win that game.
Well, yeah, but it is the kind of thing, too, where it's like, you can talk about, don't deserve to win a game, but if you notice a team is almost beating themselves, like they were able to capitalize in a lot of areas, and also, I didn't think, all things considered, looking at the penalty count, it was actually worse than I thought. I felt like a good amount of this game was played out 5-on-5, more so than I often feel like. I feel like the Jets have been in a lot of really penalty-heavy games in the last little bit. But that early Josh calling the interference, it's like, oh, dude, you gotta stop. So you gotta give credit where credit's due for being able to come up with the wins in situations like this, because we can talk about, I love my deserve to win a meter more than anyone in the world, but at the end of the day, who walked away with 2 points and who walked away with 0, and that's what matters, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. And the Islanders, their final 2 minutes, and especially the final minute, they were great. Bo Horvat, I don't know who he took puck from, fantastic like takeaway, and then shifted down the ice. Palmieri at the very end, that's like they're the New York Islanders. They get a 1-goal lead, and then they just kind of shut down and play sound defense. And yeah, it was from like 5 minutes on, it was really good, especially dealing with that power play or penalty kill.
For sure. So that kind of wraps up the general gist of what I wanted to talk about for a lot of things in this game. We'll talk a little bit more about kind of going forward. So the Jets are done a road trip now, which is nice. Get to come home and play, the noted awful Colorado Avalanche, right? Yay. Looking forward to that one on Friday. That's a team that we haven't played a whole ton this year. Even though they're in division, we have a couple more matchups against them this season. So it'll be interesting to see how they fare against that team while they're still somewhat depleted. Makar is not going to be playing on Friday, so that's something that they're going to have to take advantage of, because that's not going to happen if you run into them in the playoffs. That guy will be there, and he's going to be, your number one nightmare throughout the entire series and whatnot. So it'll be interesting to see how the next little bit goes. But Mike, from an out-of-market perspective of the Winnipeg Jets, we already talked a little bit about trade deadlines, movements, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, we've all been looking at the trade boards and who's up there, who's looking at being moved, and all those kinds of things. From your perspective, what kinds of players could you see being a fit for the Winnipeg Jets?
It's so tough because basically I would have said basically all three of the guys that have already been traded, but now it's so tough because it's like Timo Meier, Ivan Barbashev. It's like either you get this elite, fantastic player, or you get basically a second, third liner. I genuinely don't know. Like at this point, a team should either overpay for Chikrin or like get like a decent fourth or third liner. There's really not much left in the trade market.
No, for sure.
I know
Exactly.
that's pretty bad. That's a pretty ass answer.
No, and it's hard too because you look at all these teams who are in good shape, and it's like, what does this team need? It's like, oh, they could probably use a good player. Like, no one doesn't need a good player, so it's hard. So you look at all these teams, and obviously, if you want to look at depth pieces and further adds and stuff like that, it gets a little bit more tailored to that specific team and where their areas of weakness are. But it's like, every single team, I talked about this in the last game and I got roasted for my metaphor I used, but essentially it's like you could do a little flowchart roadmap and you look at the top and you're like, are you an NHL team? Yes. Should you want Timo Meier? Yes. Like that's it. It's kind of hard to like look too specifically at need when you have players who are as strong as that available. So it'll be interesting to see where that guy ends up.
Yeah, like as much as I didn't love the Bo Horvat trade, at least like he is without a doubt a very good player at the body. He's like a 60-point center at least. Like I almost prefer that we did that instead of like March 2nd or 3rd trade like a first for Gavrikov or like Barbashev, who would have just been rentals and are half the player of Bo Horvat's. Like, although if I could go back in time and stop it, I definitely would have stopped that trade. But in retrospect, it actually like compared to the market, what it's shaping up to be, it's actually an okay deal.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like you said, you can always look at these sorts of things, but when we talked about, like, you know, as a Jets fan, the most, you know, notable trade that's ever happened is the Pierre-Luc Dubois Patrick Laine trade, right? Like, you look at it and it's the kind of thing where it's like, you can look at all the technicalities, the circumstances surrounding it, you know, the money, this, that, whatever, but oftentimes it's like, did you walk away from this with a good player? Yes or no? And if you have a decent player on your hockey team, usually, you know, you can kind of forgive the circumstances that led to it. It's like maybe you would have liked it to be a lesser pick or a lesser this, that, whatever. But oftentimes when you walk away with the better player of the situation, it feels a little bit more forgivable after the initial shock of the trade happening, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Like as much as losing Aturatu and that first round pick is, the odds that either of those players are better than Bo Horvat is probably going to be less than 25%, I'd say. So, like, at the end of the day, you probably get the better player whenever you're trading assets for a current player, but you might not win shit. So that also factors in.
Yeah, someone's been watching my videos and helping me out with my assets and screaming about asset maximization. So, just before we wrap up, just a fun little out of market question for you. So, obviously, again, watch the Winnipeg Jets tonight. You're familiar with the Winnipeg Jets in a certain capacity. If you're Lou Lamoriello for a day and you get like a strange constraint where it's essentially you have to trade for someone on the Winnipeg Jets, who are you trading for, and what does that trade look like?
We don't have a lot of assets. That's the problem. like obviously, like Kyle Connor would be the guy that I'd want. Maybe trade for like, they wouldn't say yes to it, but maybe like Cole Perfetti. You give up an Oliver Wahlstrom, who was a 2018 12th overall pick. You give up another decent prospect. I'm really high on Cole Perfetti. I like his game a lot, and I know they probably wouldn't never trade him in a second. But if I can't assemble a massive package for Kyle Connor or Ehlers, Cole Perfetti for Wahlstrom a first, and I don't even know who else. We ain't got much.
Okay. Interesting. I like that. I'm definitely a fan of Cole Perfetti as well, as everyone knows. I think that player has a lot of potential in him. But I like seeing the love from out of market because he's someone who I don't think gets enough.
I love Winnipeg.
Yeah, okay. Puts Winnipeg on your no trade list, and right. So awesome. Well, that kind of wraps up the general gist of what I wanted to talk about on the show today. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I see we got some people interacting with each other in the chat, which is fantastic. Hearing a lot of comparisons to other markets and, you know, situations that plague the Jets and why they're so bad. But it's great to see everyone interacting, and you'll obviously be able to catch us here after every single Jets game, either myself or my co-host Brady. I'm actually going out of town for a couple weeks. I'm going to Montreal for some school stuff, so I'm going to be off the board here. So Brady's going to be taking over and really having a ton of fun on Game Over the next couple weeks. So I'll see you all on Friday for the Colorado game, and then I'm taking some time off, and so that'll be fun. But if you want to see more from me, you know, if No pressure, of course, because lots of yelling goes on Twitter about the most random things. But you can always find me on Twitter at LyssHood, LyssHoude, and also follow SDPN Sports on there and find out everything that they're up to. And also you can follow me on TikTok at Can't Teach Size if you want to hear me once again yelling about things in a verbal format instead of tweeting my 280 characters about what I'm mad about today. Mike, anything that you want to plug about what you get up to?
Instagram, TikTok, MBon Hockey, MBon Hockey, Twitter, Mike Bartner at Mike Bartner. And yeah, that's really it right now. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for the city of Winnipeg for gracing me as a guest.
Well, there's Mike's got a lot of fun stuff coming up, and there could be opportunity for collab with the city of Winnipeg with Mike, what he's got up to. So make sure you guys are following him and all those socials that he mentioned.
City's coming my way.
Yeah. So check that out. And Mike, thank you so much for taking the time out of your evening. We appreciate it. Jets play next on Friday, home game against Colorado Avalanche. So that division matchup will be really fun, and we'll see who gets the best of that game, and then we'll go from there. So trade deadline coming up in a week or so. So make sure you're following all these different socials that we mentioned today, and you're staying up to date with everyone's opinions, because we all have them on these types of things. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and have a great rest of your evening.
Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.